The great Reformed scholar Louis Berkhoff defined hermeneutics as, quote, the science that teaches us the principles, laws, and methods of interpretation. He goes on to set the science of hermeneutics task as the removing of the distance between an author and his readers. The Baptist theologian, Bernard Ram, likens hermeneutics to a rule book and exegesis to the game. Now, you may not be familiar with the word exegesis, so let us define that. Exegesis is the critical explanation or interpretation of a text, especially of Scripture. We speak of, quote, the task of biblical exegesis, unquote. Now, the opposite of exegesis is something we call eisegesis, and that is defined as the process of interpreting a text or portion of text in such a way that the process introduces one's own presuppositions, agendas, or biases into and onto the text, unquote.
So to simplify that, exegesis is to read doctrine out of the text, whereas eisegesis is to read dogma into the text. Unfortunately, this tendency is common not only with cults, but even with millions of Christians.
Yes, that is so. So what are the rules of correct Bible interpretation?
This is the way I simplified it for my research to teach Sunday school classes. First rule, read the sentence that has the text that you're wanting to study. Then read the paragraph that the sentence is in. Then read the paragraphs on either side of that paragraph. The second thing to do then is to ask the reporters questions. Who, what, where, when, and why. The first of the 5 W's. Who. Who is speaking, and who were the original audience of the text you are examining?
If you've seen the video Door to Door, Part 5, we talked there about how the Watchtower uses, for instance, 2 Timothy chapter 4, exhorting Jehovah's Witnesses to greater busyness in public preaching. And remember the text says, preach the word, be at it urgently. But what's the problem? Who is the audience? Paul is talking to a fellow church leader, Timothy. He's not talking to all believers, and he's not even talking to all Timothy's congregation.
Second question of the 5 W's. What? What is the subject? For this you need to read the chapters on either side of the paragraphs that you were talking about. So you need to read more in context. Then you can ask, what was the context in its original setting or Bible book? For example, the year I discovered that I couldn't go door to door anymore, or at least speak door to door, was when I found out from reading the whole book of Job that Job 19 proof text that I had been using when I read the surrounding chapters, I couldn't use it anymore as a proof text because Job contradicts himself about life after death. So he seems to be having vacillating points of view in chapters 19 and chapters 14 about how he feels, hopeful or despairing.
His mood keeps changing. There's another similar misuse that you remind me of, which is the book Ecclesiastes is commonly used by Jehovah's Witnesses to actually supply a starting point for the discussion of life after death, the nature of life after death. But it's not legitimate to start with Ecclesiastes to discuss issues of theological certitude like life after death or the nature of God, because Ecclesiastes, by his own admission, is talking from experience. What I have seen under the sun is the recurring line in the book of Ecclesiastes. The author of Ecclesiastes, Koheleth in Hebrew, is not claiming to have revelation from God on this subject. So you can't use Ecclesiastes to demonstrate absolute truths about life after death. Now, in the next video, we'll take up the other 3 W's that a reporter must ask to get to the truth of any interpretive matter.